If you want to conduct experiments like this in space,
we are trying to grow edible plants.
This is the only place to do it. But soon, the International Space Station will have company. In April, China launched the core part of its new space station, called Tiangong, which means Heavenly Palace in Chinese. China says Tiangong will be up and running by 2022, becoming a research spacecraft that will orbit Earth alongside the nearly 23-year-old International Space Station. NASA and its partner countries have agreed that the older spacecraft will operate through 2024, though its future after that is unclear. So here's what's on China's new space station and how it compares with the international one. The first thing you have to know about China's space station, it's building it all by itself, and some of the reasons for that go back about a decade. Since 2011, China has been excluded by US law from working with NASA. As a result, China's astronauts have not been allowed to set foot on the International Space Station, which is a collaboration with 5 space agencies. China's foreign ministry said that the US is judging an upright man with a petty mind. And China's space station ambition has been 30 years in the making. In 2003, it sent its first astronaut to space, making it the 3rd country after the US and Russia to do that. Less than a decade later, China said it successfully launched 2 test modules, which are the basis for any space station design. The International Space Station currently has 16 modules, whereas China only has 1 in orbit. But eventually, Tiangong will be made up of 3.
It's only about a quarter or so of the size of the current International Space Station. 3 people can live on the Chinese space station at the moment.
Compare that with the 6 people usually on board the International Space Station, or in 2009, when there was a record total of 13 astronauts at one time, and China could potentially reach that capacity too, just by adding more modules. Thanks to this design, the International Space Station has been an evolving project since 1998. While the Tiangong spacecraft is smaller, China says it's equipped with more advanced technology. And one of them is a system that helps power Tiangong with solar panels. The electricity generated from the panel wings essentially helps keep the lights on. But one unique part about China's setup is that it also powers the spacecraft's propulsion technology. So even though Tiangong still uses regular fuel propellants like the International Space Station, China says it doesn't have to use as much to stay afloat in orbit. China's space agency says its propulsion system is about 5 times more efficient and powerful than the International Space Station's, which is a gas guzzler, consuming about 9 tons of fuel annually to stay in orbit. Another piece of equipment that the International Space Station doesn't have, a tag-along space telescope. It's called Shuntian, which means heavenly cruiser in Chinese, and will orbit parallel to the space station.
A bit like the Hubble Space Telescope, but this will have an enormously large camera which can look at 300 times the field of view of the Hubble Space Telescope in one hit.
The Chinese telescope will be able to refuel and be serviced by directly docking at Tiangong, unlike the Hubble telescope, which, because it orbits on its own, requires astronauts to fly in from Earth for repairs. And one day, China's space telescope could be used by other countries, because China has said its new space station is designed for collaborations.
With the completion of the Chinese space station by 2022, that will be a competitive alignment for countries that want to choose which space station they would launch their experiments on.
China's decision-making process could be very different from the International Space Station, which requires consensus among its partners.
Chinese space station is going to be operated by China. Any decision to allow a particular scientific experiment to be conducted in the Chinese space station will of course be taken by China.
And more of these decisions could come soon, since Tiangong is set to be completed by 2022. And that milestone is another one in just a few years, in addition to landing on the far side of the moon, to sending a rover to roam Mars. But China won't be the only one left to fill the vacancy when the International Space Station heads into retirement. NASA is leading a plan to launch an outpost that will work like the International Space Station, but instead orbit the moon. And Russia has indicated that it could launch its own space station by 2030.
Space is always seen as a part of geopolitics. The competition that is ongoing is which country has the more attractive space capacity in low Earth orbit and beyond.